Hey everyone, welcome back to Alf's Mustang Garage, bringing you another video to help keep your Mustang on the road and out of the garage. Today we're back on the 289 engine rebuild, doing the whole series on this from start to finish. What we're doing today is we're going to be installing our rocker arms and adjusting valves. So if you haven't had a chance yet, if you want to subscribe to the channel, it does help us grow, which helps us produce more videos for you guys. Those little things go a long way. If you find this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, because those things are also very helpful. So let's jump right into it. The particular rocker arms we are using, and this is not going to be the same for every 289 or every engine build. There are these comp cams, roller rockers, 1431-16. You have to have the right kind of valve stems to run these, because kind of a stock 289, you're not going to have like this kind of channel that your roller tip is going to stay in like that. Like a very bone stock 289, like the valve stem is going to be kind of almost flush on top of the valve spring there, and it just kind of like rides there. But with these, we have the raised stem. These is 351 Windsor heads. So anyway, that's why we're rolling with these little roller tip rocker arms. Okay, so everything's kind of on here for now. I want to kind of point out that like everything gets pre-lubed. The roller tip, the valve stem, you know, inside the cup here for the push rod, the pivot inside there, like all of that is all pre-lubed for you. So you want to, that's what's going to really save you when you do your first startup, is everything kind of has to get pre-lubed before all the oil gets flowing there naturally. So yeah, just to make sure you kind of emphasize on that. And now that you're all kind of set up here and ready to go, we can start our valve adjustment procedure. I'm going to try to describe the best I can with what you're actually doing here in this procedure. You want your valve to open at an appropriate, you know, length or distance, and your hydraulic lifter is going to provide, you know, the stiffness and the cushion to allow that to happen. Okay, now if you're working with solid lifters, the procedure is relatively the same, except you actually will put a feeler gauge between here, your rocker tip, and your valve stem. Okay, but we're using hydraulic lifters, so what we're going to be doing is adjusting these so that there's a natural kind of preload on the valve, and it's going to open and close like accordingly. Okay, if that kind of makes sense. So with that being said, the way you do this is every cylinder kind of has to be done in the same way, and you have to kind of rotate the engine around as you do it, because you can't just adjust all the valves with the engine in the same location and call it good. The camshaft lobes obviously are going to be different for every single valve. So to start, you know, I'm on #1 cylinder, top dead center, 4 compression stroke. So we're going to be on the base of the cam lobe, and that's where you want to like adjust these. Now there's multiple ways that people adjust valves differently, and I get that. I'm just going to show you what I do that works best for me, and again, everybody kind of does it differently. So we're on cylinder 1, which these 289 small block engines are cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to start on cylinder 1 to stay as organized as I can. And every time we, adjust one cylinder, you're going to adjust intake and exhaust on that cylinder. You're going to rotate the engine 90 degrees and it'll bring you to the next cylinder. And so you need to follow the firing order. So if you're an early model 289-302, you're going to go from cylinder 1 to cylinder 5, okay? And then 5, 4, 2, 6, 3, 7, 8. And then if you have a later model 302, you have a completely different firing order. So you need to make sure you just kind of follow your firing order. And that's kind of how I do it. I know there's different ways to do it, but that's how I do it. So with cylinder 1 on top dead center, we're going to adjust the nut to 0 lash. And what that means is there's 0 up and down movement here. So I have like this huge gap between the rocker arm and the lifter. So we're gonna make that 0, so 0 up and down play. Okay, so here we are set up on cylinder 1. I'm gonna run this down to 0 lash. It's nice with the intake off if you're doing something like a engine rebuild. You can kind of just grab the push rod down here below as you kind of turn it. As you get closer, it gets a little more difficult to see it, but it's all kind of a feel thing. I can just feel that there's up and down play in here. Do the same thing over here on the exhaust valve. Okay, now that you're at 0 lash, I do want to kind of emphasize that when you're doing that part, you want to make sure you're not like pushing into the plunger of the lifter and you're just like over tightening this, because that's fairly easy to do, especially if your lifter is not pumped up. Which kind of brings me to another point. Like I usually like to do this with the lifters not pumped up with oil. So if you're like replacing lifters and doing that type of job, and you're just kind of like working on an engine that's in a car and you're just replacing lifters, I like to do this without them pumped up because it kind of helps with your first startup. But in this case, like I had to pump up the lifters in order to measure the push rod length, so they're like already kind of pumped up. So, but anyways, it's fine. It's just kind of like, it's just better on your first startup. But we're at 0 lash, okay? So now what I'd like to do is 3/4 of a turn past that. So I kind of just go 1/4, 2/4, and 3/4. Okay, now we can do the same thing over here on the intake valve. So 1, 2, 3/4 of a turn. Okay, cool. So that sets me up on cylinder 1, intake and exhaust. Should be ready to rock and roll. So now what we need to do is go over to cylinder 5. That's the next, you know, cylinder up as far as your firing order goes. So cylinder 5 is, you know, directly across from it. But we need to rotate our engine 90 degrees on a V8, and that should put us up to cylinder 5. Okay, I'm just kind of show you one more here before I go on time-lapse mode and do the rest. Okay, 0 lash, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's 1 and 5 done. We're gonna repeat 9 degrees of turn, 1, 5, 4, 2, 6, 3, 7, 8. We'll get them all adjusted, and then that should be good. Okay, just a couple things to kind of go over as I kind of go through this process, just to kind of make notes of little tips along the way. While you're adjusting to the 0 lash point, it's when you get really close, it's a good thing to take your ratchet off. The weight of your ratchet can influence that up and down movement that you feel. And when you get really close, like this up and down is very, very subtle. And so you want to get the weight of your ratchet off of there and then feel it as you're kind of fine tuning that. So, and also, once you kind of roll around to cylinder 6, you know, because you're just trying to do 90-degree turns, you can actually just kind of line up your indicator here for your timing crank. And that means you've spun it around exactly 360 degrees to kind of start over for cylinder 6, because that's kind of how that works. You know, 1, 5, 4, 2, and now starting with cylinder 6, you're exactly 360 degrees around the crank. You got to spin the crank around twice to get through all 8 cylinders, because it's, you know, 2 turns of the crank equals 1 turn of the camshaft. So coming up to cylinder 6, if you kind of do your standard 90-degree turn, it should be really close, which it is. My 0 mark is like right there. Might be hard to see, but I'm just going to line up 0. And now I am ready to go for cylinder 6. So I figured I'd get on the last one here on cylinder 8 and kind of give you one last kind of up close. So you're kind of really close here to achieving 0 lash. And so that's when you kind of want to just kind of slowly kind of do a little bit. I can still feel it even with my ratchet on there. You gotta lift it up from the rocker or come down here and you can feel it with the push rod. See, it just has that up and down play. And it's getting less and less. Okay, so I am finally here where it's just, there's no up and down play. It just takes like very subtle movements to get you there, and we're good. We're there on cylinder 8. So again, just to reiterate, we're going to do 3/4 of a turn. 1, 2, 3. One, two, and 3. And that's your valve adjustment. I've seen lots of videos on this. I see lots of people ask questions about this over and over again. You have to keep in mind that this procedure that you just watched is strictly for hydraulic camshafts with adjustable rockers. There's some stuff out there that have positive stop rocker arms that you don't adjust, you just torque them down. There's lots of different stuff out there, so you kind of want to be aware of what type of rocker studs you have, what type of rocker arms you have, what type of camshaft and lifters you have, because that's what it's kind of all boils down to. So anyways, we have a hydraulic flat tappet camshaft with a roller tip, and that's how I do these. I hope that's helpful. I hope that kind of explains a lot, because what you're trying to control is how much the valve is opening and kind of have it ready to go, so there's no delay when it's time to open, and it's opening up enough and not too little, it's just right. So that's what you're achieving there. So, and of course it can't be too loose because it's just going to rattle. It can't be too tight. You're going to put too much stress on your push rod and your valve train if it's too tight. So, okay. As always, appreciate you being here. Hope the video was helpful. Give it a thumbs up if it was. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe, please do so. It does help our channel to produce more videos which are helpful for you guys. And next video, I think we're probably going to be doing an intake manifold on this build. So if you haven't checked out the whole series, I'll put links in the description and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, appreciate it. Thanks for watching.